everyone. Glad to have you all here. This is the last in-person San Diego County Reinvestment Task Force of 2023, so we almost made it. Thank you to the San Diego Housing Commission staff for your work in getting us all here and together for today's meeting. And I will call this meeting to order at 1:08 p.m. on October 12th, 2023. I am Monica Montgomery Steps, City Council President Pro Tem and District 4 Representative. Pleased to co-chair the RTF with Supervisor Joel Anderson, who is not able to make it today. So the Reinvestment Task Force is an official joint city-county commission to foster, created to foster increased financial inclusion and advance economic justice. So at this time, we will go around and have everyone just say your name for the record and who you are representing. We will start with Ms. Rojas.
Hi everyone, my name is Yvonne Rojas and I'm here representing Les San Diego.
Hello everyone, Adolfo Ventura representing MAC.
Peter Armstrong, representing Wakeland Housing and Development Corporation.
Stephen Russell with the San Diego Housing Federation.
Enrique Mesa representing U.S. Bank.
Good afternoon, everyone. Elizabeth Schott, the CEO of Accessity, a CDFI small business lender here. Thanks.
Antonio Barbosa representing Wells Fargo.
Hi, everyone. Sergio Caro representing Citibank.
And Sarah Bowles representing JP Morgan Chase. Hi.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We do have a quorum, and we will go now to non-agenda public comment. I would ask the clerk or Daisy to proceed with public comment, or if we have one. Francine Maxwell, you will have 3 minutes.
Touch. Good afternoon, Francine Maxwell, Southeastern San Diego resident. I just wanted to come, as it is the last one of the year, to hope that you, when you do your strategic planning, that you come to the community, and you come to the community in an hour where working families can come, so that they can really share with you the impact of what you do here. It is troublesome that you continue to meet in this building at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the 8th largest city. And you talk about the importance of making sure that we have fair economic, just every buzzword that there is right now as it pertains to DEI, economic justice. When you can't hear from the people that you impact in this building, we had to wait. They had to take shifts to come get everybody in the elevator. Completely understand security purposes and things like that. But if you were in a community, say Balboa Park, El Prado, somewhere that people could park, you can still park here, it's wonderful, but somewhere where they can come and express to you. I'm also concerned that there wasn't any intentionality for you guys to interface with the city council, the housing authority, to make sure that your constituents had a voice when it pertains to the next CEO of the Housing Commission. We had to fight to get the council president to consider to have a community seat, and they have. So now we just are waiting to see who that community person is going to be that's going to be on the interview panel and everything for the next CEO of the Housing Commission, something that's extremely important. We did not have enough community engagement, even if they tell you they did, because there were very few meetings that were just tailored for community. 2 o'clock meetings, 10 o'clock meetings, when people are working 2 and 3 jobs, they can't tell you what they're looking for in the next CEO of the Housing Commission. So please, as you plan for 2024, come out of this building. Come into the community so that you can hear from real, live, struggling people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. If we have no other non-agenda public comments, we will now move on to task force member comments. Feel free to raise your hand or if anyone has any updates for us. Yes, Ms. Schott.
Thank you. just a quick update from Accessity. A couple of task force meetings ago, I announced a federal grant that we received from the U.S. Department of Treasury CDFI Fund Equitable Recovery Program, and I presented on that program. And so we did receive our final agreement from a legal perspective, and we will be launching that program this fall. I anticipate it to be accessible sometime in November, and we will be hosting some community partner trainings so that our community partners are aware of the criteria and the program that'll be available to small business owners through that loan and grant program. So I will certainly keep the task force abreast as to when those will happen in early November. And the last thing I'll share is just a webinar that we have specifically focusing on female entrepreneurs. It's called She Means Business, and it's on October 26th at 10 a.m. We have a panel of local entrepreneurs across actually the state of California that are just speaking about their tips and educational information that would be helpful to female entrepreneurs. So just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that as a resource. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you, Councilmember Montgomery Stepp. So a couple of things I want to announce with two different hats on. First of all, last week was the annual housing conference for the San Diego Housing Federation. Many sponsors around the table. I want to thank you. It's always interesting because we hear topics that are on the top of people's minds. When people come together, you suddenly find something rises to the fore. And preservation of existing affordable housing was one of those issues that just kept coming up, being repeated, and those panels were overflowing. And so I just want to call that out as something that we need to continue to look at. My other hat, are we allowed to announce the allocation? So we have a new market, as the board chair of Civic Community Ventures, I'm proud to say that our organization was awarded another allocation of new market tax credits in the amount of $60 million. Civic has been very successful in deploying these tax credits. It has resulted in an incredible number of new permanent jobs and investment in our communities. And so we are looking forward to, again, placing that $60 million in new market tax credits very effectively to serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Peter.
Well, I just want to say, Steve and Civic, that Wakeland is going to be darkening your doorstep on that for that new market tax credit allocation.
Bringing your light to us.
Yes, that's right. Bringing our light to you. So that's great news. Also, good news. I just want to announce. Wakeland has been working with the city and the county, Price Philanthropies, to bring 2 new affordable rental projects to City Heights. They're essentially, I think of them as a capstone to the great work that the city and Price have been doing for decades around the urban village. So we're going to have 135 new apartment units, all restricted for low and very low income tenants. And those projects are essentially complete. One of them is now 100% leased. The second one will be completed and 100% leased by the end of the calendar year. So this is, bringing critical affordable housing to, City Heights, an area that is really being impacted by rapid increases in rents and gentrification. So it's really great news, and really appreciate the partnership of the many folks that have helped us bring those units to market. I will say that U.S. Bank is our tax credit investor and construction lender on those projects. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that update. And I will go to Sergio now.
Thank you, Councilmember Montgomery Stepp. Hello, everyone. Sergio with Citibank. I wanted to announce a current RFP that's available at this time through the City Foundation. And through the Community Progress Makers Initiative, the City Foundation seeks to invest in visionary organizations with a proven track record of transformational community impact by providing them with unrestricted trust-based funding. Southern California is one of the geographic target markets that's eligible to apply for funding. It's $1 million in unrestricted grant support for over 3 years, in addition to access to technical assistance from national experts and leading researchers on issues related to financial health and economic opportunity, and opportunities to connect and share learnings through webinars and local and national convenings. I definitely would encourage organizations, nonprofit organizations, to visit the City Foundation website. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me after the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no other task force member comments, we will now move to item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes. For the June 29th, 2023 minutes. So that's something different here. I knew it was, I knew it may not be right. So at this time, I entertain a discussion and or a motion for the approval of the minutes.
I would approve, or make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, great. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I can second.
Okay, awesome. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. If there is no further discussion at this time, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll just try that one more time. We just have to vote yay or nay, or aye or nay for these. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's go to the staff report. So Daisy, what do you have for us today?
I have a shared mic. Hi, everyone. It is great to see you. Welcome to our guests. And to all of our members. This will be short because you're going to have to listen to me talk a lot at the end of the meeting, depending on how much time our speakers leave. Hint, hint, don't leave me much time. I want to welcome everybody and welcome especially our new members from IRC. We have Irene Boyo, and from US Bank, because Rocky got a promotion, we have Enrique Mesa, and we're really pleased to have you all here. I want to thank in front of, Mitch, of course. Rocky outpaced him by a couple of years just in her service, and was an incredible member and part of the backbone of this organization. So, not that you have big shoes.
I do.
But she speaks so well of you. We know it's going to be great. We're looking forward to working with you and getting to know you. Yes. And while I thank all of you for your time and being here, our visitors too, I especially always appreciate the organizations that make an effort to bring in one of the alternates so that organization's voice and ears are still here at the table. So thank you to Sarah and Yvonne and to Ibrahim. So then the only other business I have is also very administrative. It is the calendar for next year. As a public government meeting body, we pass a calendar of meetings for the following year, usually at the end of the year, but everyone who's been around the block with us at least once knows that our chairs are reappointed in December and January, so we can't set our schedule until January, which means that the first meeting is always special, but under government law. And that merely means that it hasn't been previously voted on. All the subsequent meetings are regular meetings. What I'd like to do is just send out a calendar hold for our traditional meeting time, which is the third Thursday of the month. So everyone at least maybe guards that a little bit, and then we'll see how many of those we're able actually to use. This year, as you know, the chairs have gotten so busy, we've got so many committees going on, that it was hard to be on a regular schedule. Thank you.
That is okay. Thank you so much for the update. Do we have any questions, comments? The staff update. All right. Okay. Moving on, we will now go to item number 6, and this is an information item, impact investment solutions to the child care shortage. And we have presenters from Mission Driven Finance and also, I believe, from the YMCA that will be presenting on this item together, I believe. So, yeah, and please introduce yourselves for us and also for those who are watching online, and proceed whenever you are ready.
Absolutely. Thank you, Co-Chair Montgomery Stepp and task force members. My name is Courtney Baltiski. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm with the YMCA of San Diego County. I'm Vice President of Public Policy and Advocacy. So in that role, I spend a lot of brain power and energy on increasing access to affordable quality childcare. YMCA Child Care Resource Service has held unique contracts with the Department of Education and the Department of Social Services to work with families in finding childcare, as well as working with over 4,196 of our childcare providers across the San Diego region in entrepreneurial development and technical assistance. So that is why I'm blessed to be here with you all today.
Hi, Courtney. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So great to see so many familiar faces here in this place. I was saying to some of my colleagues and friends, Antonio and Sergio, Sarah, it's great to see you, that I need to spend more time in this building. My name is Heather Burke. I am the Senior Director for Capital Strategy at Mission Driven Finance. We are a local San Diego-based impact investing firm and certified B Corp. Everything that we do is entirely dedicated to inclusive economic opportunity, and I'm here to talk to you today about our solution to childcare through a real estate investment strategy. Thank you so much for having us.
So we'll let Heather talk more about the phenomenal program that they've established. But I was asked to give just some common ground and understanding about our local childcare crisis. The deck that you'll all receive has a lot of really in-depth information. I don't want to go too far into the weeds, but I will say, San Diego, both county and city, have made tremendous progress on this issue in the last 4 years. And we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic really exacerbated the child care crisis and really brought to light on a national scale, how significant child care really is in supporting working families. So when we talk about economic justice, it's really critical that we're thinking about a strengthening families approach that really lifts families to a place where they have those basic needs met, including housing, including childcare, so that they can set and meet those economic goals for their family. So that's a bit about why childcare matters in this moment so much. Our economic resilience and childcare really go hand in hand. If anybody follows the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation reporting, we know that, San Diego has the second lowest female workforce participation in our country. The second lowest, friends. And so how do we start addressing that? Childcare is a really critical reason. So today we'll talk briefly about, policy change and lowering barriers for childcare expansion. We'll talk about some new resources on the scene, including the co-location guide that's been produced by partners like MAC and the Children First Collective. We'll talk a bit about employer-supported childcare, the CARE program, but ultimately, to address the child care crisis, locally we need to figure out how to bring more revenue into issues pertaining to children and youth. So the Children First Collective is an advocacy entity that I have the honor of facilitating, but importantly, this is a space where parent advocates, providers, especially our family child care providers, have a brave space to really talk about the challenges that they're facing. We do have representation on this group from the City of San Diego and the County of San Diego, and I think in building this collective, we've gotten fast together. But childcare in our region is scarce, it's inconvenient, it's unaffordable, and it varies in quality. So if you're a parent or a caregiver and you are re-entering the workforce, or you're striving to get that promotion or escalate to a full-time position, childcare can be hard to find. We are in a place in our region where pre-pandemic, we had a 60 to 90% deficit of licensed childcare slots. We'll talk more about what that looks like in this phase of the pandemic. It's inconvenient, so you may be driving up to 50 miles to find a licensed slot, and that really creates this triangular pattern between home, work, and childcare scenarios that not only impacts our carbon emissions, because a lot of parents and caregivers are driving their cars, but it also just puts more toxic stress on the household and those routines that families are experiencing. Unaffordable, so we know that San Diego has one of the highest costs of living in our country, and childcare is no exception to that. Next to the cost of housing, childcare is the second largest expense for families in our region, and depending on where you live in the region and the childcare provider that you choose, it could be as high as 40% of your household income. Within that notion, childcare providers are also some of the lowest paid essential workers in our community, with our family childcare providers who are working non-traditional hours, often making less than a minimum wage, and doing some of the most critical work in our communities in developing the beautiful brains of our babies, which happens to be 90% of brain development between the ages of 0 and 5. And it varies in quality. Our childcare providers do the best that they can with what they have. The state's investment in childcare quality initiatives has, wavered throughout the decades. There are incentives like the Quality Preschool Initiative with the County Office of Ed. We have tremendous efforts with First 5 San Diego. But First 5 San Diego funding is also largely in jeopardy because it's based on tobacco taxation from a state level. So it's great that fewer people are smoking. It's not great that in San Diego we don't have supplemental funding for our critical First 5 operations and those quality initiatives. There's a lot of good data on this report, and Child Care Resource Service, as that unique partner to the Department of Social Services, has access to this data. So if people are interested in this one-pager or have specific questions, I'm happy to follow up with more information. But basically, we've followed the trends in licensed slot availability throughout the pandemic. You can see that, from March 2020 through later this summer, we've lost as high as 5% of our childcare homes and 10% of our childcare centers. So when we think about the landscape of pre-pandemic having a 60 to 90% deficit of these licensed slots, it's even worse now than it was then. We've partnered with researchers, including Dr. Tessa Tinkler at USD, who's done landscape analysis of the severity of this issue. And especially for our infants and toddlers, it's incredibly difficult to find a licensed slot. We know that with initiatives like increased paid parental leave, which is something that the city of San Diego has now addressed, the necessity of those slots changes, and we know that parents and caregivers can stay home longer with their babies, but not everybody has that option, and we need more solutions to how to support working families in that way. You'll see that we have some really significant implications for our childcare sector with the implementation of universal transitional kindergarten. So this is the second school year where UTK is fully implemented. It's a great no-cost solution for families with 4-year-olds, but in the investment of UTK, there's no supplemental investment to our childcare sector. So childcare providers are having to make the hard decision in adapting their business models, which are already running razor thin, to question, do I open a tutoring center for school-age kiddos? Do I open licensed infant and toddler slots? But we don't have any grant opportunities from the state or localities to adapt those business ventures. So it's definitely something that we're communicating now is the need for those facility adaptations to just keep businesses viable. So in Children First Collective, we do have 6 different focus areas. Facilities including childcare centers and homes and mixed delivery system, addressing the childcare workforce crisis, mental and behavioral health support for kiddos and their caregivers, benefits and policies that support working families, local government infrastructure, and then that local dedicated funding for children and family. These are all things through community-based practices and research that we've deemed feasible for San Diego to address. And we have made progress in a lot of these buckets, including the establishment of the City of San Diego's Office of Child and Youth Success, and now the County of San Diego's Child and Family Wellbeing Department. Pre-pandemic, we really didn't have a place in our local governments for issues pertaining to children and youth to live on a macro scale. So it's great that we have that local infrastructure now. We just have to fund a lot of the programming that will hopefully take place there. A couple other achievements locally, the City of San Diego, as we mentioned, the double down on paid family leave for their employees. They're also running a municipal employees childcare pilot. We've passed Measure H, which enables park and rec facilities to have licensed childcare. And then most recently, over the summer, an increased protection for the unique tenant rights of family childcare providers was also passed. We've been working with other local municipalities as well through a San Diego Foundation pilot called San Diego Cities Together for Childcare. So you see that we've been working with Chula Vista, El Cajon, Encinitas, La Mesa, Lemon Grove, National City, Oceanside, and Vista, bringing them their unique childcare data on availability and access, a really thorough analysis of their existing ordinances and barriers to expanding childcare, and then really tangible policy recommendations. It's not surprising that one of the biggest findings in this research project was that cities with outdated ordinances do have large swaths of childcare deserts. So in doing this kind of micro level work with individual municipalities, the hope is that we can really address the feasibility of expanding childcare. The clicker got grouchy, or the deck doesn't want to move. There we go. If we look at the County of San Diego, we've done really tremendous work across partners in securing, initially CARES funding and then ARPA funding as high as $51 million. We're still looked at nationally as a locality that moved on not only supporting essential worker families to access childcare, but really sustained our childcare provider network with a CARES investment. We are now seeing the last ARPA-funded contracts go out the door from the county, so really significant investments in childcare workforce crisis, as well as exploring new research like a cost modeling survey to really understand what the cost of quality care looks like, and then what the threshold is for parent pay for participation and the subsidy system. Part of the work is also based in the co-location of childcare within affordable housing. So how do we make that more convenient for families? How do we really strengthen families by making sure community planning has childcare, housing, transportation as accessible amenities? All of this work is now embedded within the County of San Diego's childcare blueprint. So that has been made public now. There's been a couple different proclamations as well as press conferences, both with Chairwoman Vargas and Vice Chair Supervisor Lawson Reamer. But if folks are interested in learning more about the blueprint, it is public on the county site. It has really tangible action steps baked within there, and I would say if you don't see yourself directly represented, it's an invitation to get involved because we all have a role in addressing the childcare crisis, including our fabulous financial institutions locally. There's more information here on the blueprint, as well as delving deeper into that co-location guide about how to leverage affordable housing funding mechanisms to build childcare out. But I know that in partnering with folks like Wakeland, it is extremely difficult to braid that funding and to have childcare be a facet within a development. MAC Project has done this historically and done a phenomenal job, especially with their Head Start programs. But now the focus is really around how to support, higher levels of income families in accessing childcare with different funding mechanisms. But childcare providers don't typically come to the table with capital. Unfortunately, it's not funded in the same way as housing. So anything that can happen with low interest loans to providers is a phenomenal asset. We work with providers on a daily basis. Many have had really traumatic experiences with financiers who point blank tell them that they should work at McDonald's instead of caring for children because of those income levels. But they are populations of community members who do some of the most important work and are the most compassionate individuals you'll meet. So it's phenomenal that partners like Mission Driven Finance are really dedicated to innovative solutions in how to expand childcare and really honor the historic work that our early educators are doing. And I'll pass it to Heather.
Thanks, Courtney. Well, thank you so much, Courtney, for that phenomenal introduction to the childcare landscape here in San Diego. And much of what I'm going to talk about today builds off of the work that Courtney, her organization and partners are doing here and have been doing here for a long time in San Diego. What I'm here to talk to you about today is that child care slot crisis that we have here in San Diego, as we also see across the country. I'm going to be talking to you today about supporting child care providers who are providing quality early care for their communities, have long wait lists, and yet still struggle to expand. A little bit about my firm, Mission Driven Finance. I know that many of you here today are familiar with us, but it's worth noting that we are rooted here in San Diego. We are an impact investment firm and certified B Corp, and everything that we do is dedicating to getting capital to flow where it normally does not but should. We're seeking to serve small businesses who need capital above microfinance, below bank financing, and will never qualify for venture capital. We started here in San Diego with the small place-based economic opportunity fund, and we've since expanded with partners across the country where we are able to route capital very closely to community needs to better center voice, power, and decision-making in community. Everything that we do is focused on economic opportunity. You've seen our work around the community. We're working on shared ownership, inclusive entrepreneurship. I'm here today to talk about early education. And we also do a number of great work with our immigrants in indigenous communities. Two funds that may seem familiar to many of you. If you're not, I'd like to introduce them. I mentioned that we got started here in San Diego with a place-based Inclusive Economic Opportunity Fund. We have now flowed since 2017 about 17 million assets into our San Diego community. These are small business loans between $100,000 and $500,000. We do this without personal guarantees, credit scores, or any hard assets. We do this in deep partnership, working with community and their plans for change. We're very proud that our portfolio is diverse, and this is very intentional by design. About 58% of the loans that we have made in the San Diego portfolio are to small businesses that are owned or led by women, and over 70% of those small business loans are directed to ventures that are led by people of color. What may be very interesting to this body is the work that we've been doing locally here with San Diego Habitat to expand the pace of their affordable home construction across the region. In 2018, we launched a $2 million pilot fund to test how we could bring funders together to scale San Diego Habitat's affordable home construction goals. We're very proud that we indeed achieved that. We increased the pace of their affordable home construction by 60%. We built 27 homes in partnership with San Diego Habitat. We've moved those families into their homes, and we're now on track for our second fund, a larger $10 million facility, to continue the pace of that affordable homeownership construction across the region. And I'm building off of what Courtney just described about the childcare landscape here in San Diego and the scarcity of childcare. I'd like to talk to you about the work that we are now leading here in San Diego, in addition to other geographies across the country, Care Access Real Estate. This is a strategy that is fundamentally designed to scale access to early care here in San Diego through a real estate strategy that supports the stability and growth of early care providers' businesses and provides a pathway to asset ownership. Needs no explaining that across the country, the demand for childcare vastly exceeds the supply. Courtney mentioned that here in San Diego alone, we have a 60% deficit of childcare slots. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated the racial and socioeconomic fault lines that already exist within this sector, and we're continue to see these problems entrench. The childcare sector itself, a little bit about it. It is a very large sector. It's a $60 billion sector, and it is literally a cottage industry. This is an industry that is dominated by small businesses. It's dominated by women, and mainly women of color. 96.5% of childcare businesses are owned by women, and half are owned by people of color. And what we see in the childcare sector is not only a fragmented and fragile system led by small businesses, but it's one where childcare is happening in people's homes. So this aspect of real estate is incredibly important when we think about scaling childcare in San Diego. A recent study and what we have found in our own work here in San Diego is that overwhelmingly, childcare providers cite real estate as their primary barrier to expanding their existing operations. And why? Why does that happen? Well, here in San Diego, about 72% of these home-based childcare businesses are run by women and women of color, and they are renting their homes. And often they are renting homes in which they have a very unfavorable and unstable lease with their landlord. This relationship, which is often extractive, it's highly toxic, increases the instability of these childcare businesses and prevents them from investing in the own quality care environment of their business. Real estate financing, you all know this here, is incredibly complex. Courtney touched on this as well, but it is very difficult for an early care small business woman of color provider to go into a bank and get a loan to expand her business. And it is extremely overwhelming and complex when you're moving from a small licensed home care facility, looking at redeveloping, moving up to a larger license. Navigating the licensing is also incredibly complex. Small businesses, as you all know, have a hard time running their operations, keeping their doors open as it is, let alone navigating the waters of real estate development and financing. The sector desperately needs a new path for investors, public-private investors, to come together to invest in the childcare sector at scale. Small business loans, again, are very difficult for individual providers to access. It happens, but they often come with personal guarantees, hard collateral, and very high risk mitigation requirements that providers simply cannot meet. And these expansion projects, we're talking about expansion projects to a single-family home. They're often seen as too small or too risky for traditional commercial capital to take on. And so what we've landed on at Mission Driven Finance, given this real estate environment, is a REIT. So CARE is a REIT. It is a specialty REIT. It is an impact-focused REIT, and it is entirely dedicated to expanding access to early care slots here in San Diego and across the country. We are not incentivized, as many REITs are, other real estate holdings, to pump up our portfolio and sell it off. We are entirely dedicated to align the incentives of our fund with the incentives and the voice of the community. And it's very familiar to investors. A lot of investors have specialty REITs, whether in healthcare, senior housing, biotech. And we intend to offer our investors and our community our commitment to being here long term. So this is a fund that will be around for some time, and we intend to IPO after year 10 and bring massive investment into the education system. As an impact forward and first REIT, we have 3 main mission objectives for our work that's happening here in San Diego. First and foremost, we are dedicated to increasing the licensed childcare capacity in the region, working with providers moving from a small license to a larger license, working with those providers to stabilize and grow their business. We will be a childcare friendly landlord, and working with local ecosystem partners to ensure that we are sourcing providers who are ready to scale and can hold a lease. And lastly, we are dedicated to increasing the wealth of childcare providers. I mentioned early that we will be buying residential properties and commercial properties. After year 2 of successful tenancy, we offer every provider the opportunity to purchase that asset, that home, from the fund and share in any appreciation from that asset. What we're looking for in our target communities, we found this here in San Diego. We're looking for a strong anchor ecosystem partner. Here, we work with Child Development Associates. We're looking for attractive real estate market fundamentals. It's very complicated here in San Diego. Adolfo, Peter, many of you can attest to how difficult it is to buy in this market. And we're looking for places where this type of intervention can really make an impact on where childcare is scarce or where demand exceeds supply. And we're particularly talking about prioritizing historically underserved communities. And we're also looking for positive tailwinds, support from local public agencies, philanthropy, and our investor community. Here in San Diego, we've been awarded a $1 million grant championed by Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs. For our tenants, as a social impact REIT, we're looking for those provider tenants who are ready to expand. They've been operating for more than 2 years. They have evidence of quality care. They have a long wait list, the desire to expand, and yet real estate is their number one barrier. Equally as important, these providers are historically marginalized themselves due to their race, gender, ethnicity. We're providing access to capital that they might not otherwise be able to obtain. And they're serving an economically diverse customer base, at least a third below 100% AMI. Our San Diego operations, as I mentioned, have gotten off to a really great start, championed by Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs. We have a $1 million congressional earmark that has been awarded and funded to support our operations here in San Diego to do tenant improvement on the homes and to support rent subsidies. We're working with the very beloved and known Child Development Associates. We launched in 2022 with them with a provider session. We now have 13 women of color providers that are ready to move into their care property. And in our initial entry into this market, we'll have 10 to 14 homes, each adding an additional 6 slots per home to help solve the child care crisis. We're already up and running our portfolio in Nevada. If you want to have a look at what some of these homes look like, we have 5 homes in our portfolio that we've purchased in Nevada, single-family homes. The state of Nevada has awarded us about $8 million to support tenant improvements and renovations. Here you'll see Marquisha. She just moved into her home last week. It was really, really exciting. It's a really safe and ideal place for her family and the kids that she serves. And Destiny, another child care provider, slated to move in at the end of this month. In the early stages, we're working here, San Diego, Nevada, Southeast Michigan, and with a national micro Montessori school, Wildflower Schools. From there, we'll be expanding to other localities. What intrigues us about this particular task force and the community members listening and sitting around here is the opportunity for strong public-private partnerships. This San Diego real estate market and the vast problem that we're looking at when we survey what access to childcare looks like in San Diego is vast. It's going to take long-term committed public-private partnerships. This particular task force has a strong presence in thinking strategically and acting boldly on how to invest in target LMI communities. Our track record at Mission Driven Finance and getting investments to flow where they normally do not but should has poised us to really solve the childcare crisis in terms of real estate. And we welcome opportunity for comment, feedback on this model, and opportunities to continue the partnerships that we have forged thus far, particularly on the capital aspect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A lot to take in. So let's begin. I want to see if we have any public comments. No public comment. Okay.
Public comment.
At least now I know where you are, so I'll look towards your way when I ask that for the next presentation. Questions, comments from task force members? Adolfo.
Well, thank you both for the presentation. I would be remiss if I don't speak to this too, because obviously MAC has been in this childcare or childhood education business for decades. We run 19 centers, it varies, but close to between 1,500 to 2,000 children and families we served. And one of the components that, under my purview, I personally have challenge with is not as much as the spaces we already had, but I also have to highlight the issue with the salaries and our vacancy rate. So for over 2 years, I had 3-digit vacancy rate. We are very proud that in the last 2 weeks here at MAC, we were able to raise the salary for a teacher to an average of $65K a year, which is fantastic because now I'm competing with, not that I'm saying I'm in competition, but, I'm at the level where I can be and attract some of those that either left me for a traditional school district or they're looking at what we do based on the model, based on all those components that you highlighted. That attention to the importance of quality early childhood education is what we pride ourselves in doing at MAC. Being able to attract back that talent is important, but we can do it without adequate pay. And we've struggled with it for over 2 years. In this last 2 weeks that we were able to move that direction, we've been able to see a big difference in our vacancies. And for us to be able to have a wait list of hundreds of children in our inability to open up classrooms in a facility that I already had because I didn't have adequate staff to meet ratios of, licensing, it's something that you can't live with because we see the need. So I just wanted to really highlight that and also bring that into something that it's very important in this equation. We talked about cost of living. We talked about addressing a community that's a working families. Well, we also have to invest in those that are behind, those that are going to sustain that operation in order to continue to serve our community and those that need it the most. So just, I couldn't go without making that comment. And, is it easy? No. It takes a risk to go and restructure a program. But I think MAC prides itself in doing a lot of that. And many times it comes back and we get, some attention for it. But at the end, we believe in what we do and we're proud of it. And it's not an easy path, but it's a needed path to take in order to accomplish things that you were speaking to. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for emphasizing the pay parity there. Mm-hmm.
Steve, did you have something?
Just really briefly, I want to thank you for this. These are the world is in a challenging place. It's nice to hear some good news occasionally, and the work you're doing is inspiring. In particular, I think that the real mission of this task force is to find ways to increase the equity that the community has in its own community. And the model that you're proposing here, when it is about building wealth, building equity in the community so that our resources don't simply flow to shareholders elsewhere, this is really critical. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and look forward to following its progress. And if there's a role for me to participate in supporting you, I hope that I will be able to be there for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very grateful for that. Thank you.
Yes. Let's go to Irene and then come back to Daisy.
I just want to say thank you for highlighting this. With IRSC, we work with a lot of family childcare providers. And one of the things that I see mostly like affects the childcare providers either getting a license or even growing their business is affordable housing. They deal with the issue. You work with a client who want to start a family childcare business, and they end up with a landlord who is not willing to have them have a childcare in the home. And then once they have that, they end up with the issue of like payment. Our childcare providers are paid, those ones who are getting subsidized payment, which mostly in the communities that IRC serves, women of color, immigrant women, are paid below $10 an hour. So those disparities is really high within the community, and I just want to thank you so much for highlighting that and to see that it's something that someone is speaking about this and bringing this to the table. Because if we're going to talk about quality childcare, we also have to think about those payments and making sure that whatever those people are having most time with the children, they're impacting them, and if we are not investing enough in them, we are not going to be able to have quality childcare provided. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can take a moment just to honor the work of the Child Care Provider Union statewide, which has certainly helped to advocate for rate reform on a state level. To what you're speaking about in the subsidy program, which is state-funded, Child Development Associates as well as CRS are the two administrators of that program supporting, thousands of child care providers and tens of thousands of families. The reimbursement of that system is based on a regional market rate of 2018. So we're 5 years delayed in that. Child Care Provider Union had a significant win this year, but not in sustainable rate reform. It's in stipends that go to those providers as the governor continues to determine what sustainable rate reform really looks like for our state general fund.
Thank you. Daisy.
Thank you. And I neglected to introduce myself before. I'm Daisy Crumpton. I'm staff to the RTF at the Housing Commission. Thank you. I've been following the work of the CARE REIT, which is how this all first came on my radar, but it is great to hear about why, Courtney, and also giving us all that context and the latest statistics. And I've really appreciated the comments from the members, too. With the opportunity to build the home, of course, as we were working on the Worth homeownership program that we'll be talking about later on this agenda. We certainly saw a lot of overlaps there with the work at the REIT, the helping the providers to buy their home, and our grant is about building home ownership. And then also within even this building down in our Achievement Academy, you have, it's all about workforce development and home-based businesses as well. But I have talked early stages 2 years ago when we were first starting with the grant with the leadership at Mission Driven Finance. We've sort of vaguely worded one of our strategies, one of the finance ones around creating novel partnerships, and are looking forward to being able to circle back and figure out if there's any way that all the synergies around the Worth grant can help to move things forward here in San Diego so we can catch up with Nevada.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daisy, and I just want to add as we proceed, thank you, Adolfo, for your comments. Certainly, we follow the work of MAC, and in many ways, you've paved the way for others to reimagine what access to quality childcare looks like here in San Diego, and the pay parity is a massive issue, one we're very well aware of. We know that we can't tackle everything with this particular fund, but we know that one thing that we can address is as we move childcare providers from a small license to a larger license, we're going to see an income increase from bringing home revenue somewhere around $25,000 upwards of 60 to 80, and so that's a real difference. And Irene, I also want to thank you for the comments that you've made. We love the work that the IRC is leading with home-based childcare providers, and if there's any way that we can continue to forge a partnership as your partnerships continue to grow and programs for those providers, we'd love to support. And thank you, Daisy.
I have, okay, let's go to Elizabeth and then I'll come back to my question.
I just wanted to echo, I think this is such a huge issue, and I appreciate the presentation and the information, and wanted to mention, too, that Accessity is more than willing to work, especially you highlighted that you have 13 entrepreneurs here in San Diego ready to, look at using the REIT program. And so if there's any way from a flexible access to capital business loan, if they need, types of furnishing for those homes or something like that, we would be more than willing to collaborate. And we can also look at being creative in how those loans are structured to make them most amenable to how business and cash flow works. So we'd be willing to partner and look at that.
Thank you. That's very welcome. And as Courtney was just describing, what it looks like for childcare providers that are using subsidies, their cash flow and their balance sheets are really lumpy. They're hard to understand. It's hard to access a small business loan through traditional financing, and I will say that mortgages are even more difficult. And so one thing that we're hoping to do here in San Diego, it's beginning to crystallize in Nevada. We know that we're going to need to work with our local investment and banking community to help them understand what a childcare business looks like, what that income looks like, how their balance sheets typically flex and flow depending upon the season, and the subsidies that they're accessing. And so as we get off the ground, and I hope that we'll have our first property soon. It's challenging here in this market. I think everyone's experienced how difficult it is to buy a home here. We want to buy homes that our childcare providers can afford. They all have home ownership aspirations. We want them to exercise that right in this program, and the mortgage piece is going to be a big one. So working with our local community to think through those small business loans, and then what will it look like to underwrite a small business provider for a mortgage.
So I have a question. It's sort of, the info is in the footnote. I had to take a picture of it, so that's why I'm looking at my phone. And it was a part of Courtney's presentation, and it where you have you bear out the numbers with the chart. And at the bottom of the slide, it says, as of May 2023, there are 13 child care centers and 238 family child care providers that are licensed but inactive and not currently providing care. Combined, they are licensed for 2,760 child care slots in San Diego County. They're not included in the data, so you didn't inflate the numbers in any way. But there's, because there is uncertainty if they will reopen again. Is there any targeted effort to see what the issues are with those folks that are licensed but inactive, see where those issues come and how any of the associations listed, or you or us, could help get them? It would seem like it wouldn't be. They're in the middle instead of like kind of starting from scratch. So do you have any feedback on that, or any communication with those particular facilities and centers?
Absolutely. The state has had two modest investments in what's called the SIP program, or Child Care Initiative Project, to all of the state's local resource and referral networks. So that lives within YMCA Child Care Resource Service. So we have had team members do direct communication to those providers who are inactive on the licensing roster. There's been incentives to come back online. I think a number of providers, and what we've heard is that they're really waiting to see what rate reform will look like on a state basis. A number of them are older, so they're considering if they're physically able to get back into the work in a sector where retirement and healthcare benefits are extremely limited. A lot of them don't have the physical capacity to get back into the work, unfortunately. I think that those efforts can certainly continue to be explored, and it's an opportunity for some local initiatives to complement what the state has done. because certainly getting new providers into the sector, especially with the pay parity that exists, is uphill.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. I was also thinking about folks who are going to close up shop because, they've been doing it for 20, 30 years. I have examples like that in my own family.
Yeah.
My first job was at a child care house. I won't say facility, but we were good, though. We followed all the rules.
Yeah. I think we are exploring initiating a childcare marketplace, though, so that, if a provider did go out of operation, how do we save, furniture that's been invested in and make sure that provider, as they're outgoing, is setting up an incoming provider or existing provider with some of the resources they do have.
Okay. No, thank you for that additional perspective. Presentation was really informative and good, and we will make sure that we share with our community members as the statistics list. There's a high population of women of color that are doing this work. So we certainly want to make sure we are targeting them for all of the information that you've given us. Thank you. And at this time, we will move on to item number 7. This is another informational item, Developers of Color Seed Academy. So we have Sarah that is here with us, Executive Vice President, Stephen Russell, President and CEO, both of the San Diego Housing Federation. Thank you for being here. Please proceed when you are ready.
Well, thank you. I will start with a very brief introduction because this show really does belong to Sarah Buchanan here. I just want to say approximately a year ago, a little less than a year ago, JP Morgan Chase came to us and asked if the San Diego Housing Federation would be willing to work with them on a new partnership with an organization at the time called NDC, the National Development Council, now entitled Grow America. And the purpose of the program was to build the capacity of emerging BIPOC and women real estate developers and increase their ability to attract capital and undertake or expand the affordable housing community. To some extent, this is outside of our normal wheelhouse because the Federation, clearly, we have spent a lot of our resources and time and energy on LIHTC affordable housing development. But we are a long-term community development organization, and we found there's a great interest amongst our developers who are very community-driven, very much mission-oriented, and so we felt that we could be a good partner. We signed on, and what resulted from that simple commitment is a great story, I think, that I'm going to leave to Ms. Sarah Buchanan, who is our Executive Vice President of the San Diego Housing Federation.
Thank you so much, Steve. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Buchanan, again, San Diego Housing Federation. I've had the unique privilege of serving the Federation in multiple capacities, from serving as the Director of Events and Membership to really understanding who the people are that work in this sector, as well as understanding what education points are important. And so I have also had the opportunity to really serve as the point person for this program within San Diego. So I'm just going to tell you a little story. As Steve mentioned, we were approached by JP Morgan Chase, and they came to us with the NDC group, specifically Jackie Gorman and Courtney Pogue, who were our 2 instructors for the program. Our first item was to get them introduced to San Diego. Who are the key players? Who are actually the people doing the work? What are the opportunities that we see? We did a full day of site visit tours, both construction hard hat tours, where you can see a picture here, as well as some tours of completed properties and some groundbreaking items as well. So they got to see a full picture of what that looked like. During those conversations, one of the things that came out was the opportunity to really understand at the construction level too, what's happening on the ground as these buildings are being created, produced, and so forth. So having the opportunity to not only engage with the site team, the on-site staff that does the construction pieces, but also the teams within those organizations that do the development, and understand how we can learn from them. So our next thing was really, what is this program? What can it do? And why were we chosen? sorry. So NDC, as Steve mentioned, is National Development Council. It's a national organization. They specialize in training folks to do development. That could be nonprofit, for-profit, or for rent, for sale, housing, really the gamut. They do it all. They also have a lot of other traditional training programs around how to support lending, how to do feasibility, and other things like that. So they decided to choose 3 different sites, 3 different cities, and San Diego was the very first one that they selected. And we were lucky that the Federation was chosen as the city partner for this program. So what our role was to serve as the liaison, to not only provide the structure for the class, but also do some research into who are the key players, what are the key opportunities, what things are we missing, what ideas and items are going to be important for the students. So I brought together about 100 folks multiple times. This is a list of the organizations that were represented. This isn't a full list. I was making notes earlier and I realized I forgot a few, so forgive me, but we had quite a big group here. So we brought them together multiple times to discuss what are the items in San Diego that make development hard. What are the items that if you're a developer in San Diego you need to know? What are things that could be incentive programs? What are things that could help you understand how to do the full scope of the work? So from there, we talked about a little bit, I'm actually going to go forward one. We talked a little bit about what the actual class is going to look like, what the curriculum is going to look like. So we decided that this cohort would be a for rent, and specifically cohort around for rent affordable housing. So we met with a couple of different teams within the city of San Diego and also the county of San Diego, and then we also had conversations with other developers to really focus on what were the pieces that students would need to know, especially if they're just starting, how could they get their foot in the door. So the real process of understanding who the students might be was to understand that we needed to pull from the community. Folks who are living and working in San Diego region, folks who are doing any of this work or maybe have an opportunity to create housing. So with the steering committee, we created a application, and again, we were the very first cohort of all of the NDC programs, and actually the only one that has finished at this point, although there's still some more work to do. And part of what we talked about was we wanted the students to be from different backgrounds. We wanted them to have different socioeconomic backgrounds, as well as different job backgrounds, different opportunity backgrounds. So as you can see here, we have a very variety of folks that are on here. We even have multiple folks who are doctors, 2 of which who are medical doctors, one that was a nurse. We have a background of someone who owned a nonprofit foundation in Orange County, actually, that gives to, it's called the April Parker Foundation. It gives to organizations who are doing development and services around housing. So in a way, it just made sense. A couple of our folks were people who are just really ingrained in the local community, like Pastor Harvey Vaughn, who not only is a pastor in San Diego area, but also is a really amazing community member and community leader. And Jean Wee Tran, who is as well another community leader and really connected to the community in which that he serves. So everybody that came to this cohort had a specific vision of what they wanted to achieve, a specific why of why they wanted to be part of this cohort, and why they wanted to learn how to do development. And every single one of them was different. We even had Krista Hatton, who is someone who identifies as Two-Spirit and also has a services background. So she they understood how to do the community service and the resident services, had been working at resident services for a couple of years. So having those different backgrounds, being able to come together to not only understand what they're learning, but also create something was really interesting and important for us. So, as you can see here, again, I have printouts of all of this if anybody has any questions and wants to have more information. But we met with the steering committee to decide what items would be talked about. We discussed pre-development, debt financing, it was a couple different days, state and local financing. We even went to the pre-development costs and learned about pro formas, how to pencil in things, what that looks like. Have a ton of worksheets here that we were given, including a spreadsheet that really talked about different items and how you could actually pencil in all of that, project costs. And then NDC had actually created a work plan as well. So their textbook is about 200 something pages. This is just one copy. And then they also gave every student a case book and a lesson note plan. So everyone had these before the class began. So they were able to do some of that work before they even started the class. One of the opportunities we also gave them was multiple opportunities to network with folks, both the mentors, the steering committee, and then the community at large. We offered 2 different opportunities, one that was pre the training week, where all of the mentors, the steering committee, and all of the students got together to actually meet one another in person and ask questions and see if they could make any connections to see if maybe I want that person to be my mentor, or maybe I want that person to be my, whatever. And from that, it has grown into an opportunity that not only has had the students be really ingrained in San Diego, but has allowed them the opportunity to ask more questions and really follow along with what other organizations are doing. So this was the full list of what we did for class week. And each day we had in the morning a lesson from NDC team that Jackie and Courtney would give. And we would go through the pro formas, we would talk about different lessons, different opportunities. We had a lot of actionable plans and test cases, a lot of cases actually, lots and lots of homework. So we would go over the homework in the morning, then they would do a lesson plan, and then the afternoon there was always a special guest speaker. And so we had a wonderful list of speakers who came in that week. Everyone from, you can see here, Jeanette Temple from Atlantis Group, John Seymour from National Core, and so on and so forth. So we were very lucky to have such a diverse group of folks to come and actually teach. But also these are folks who do this work. So having the opportunity to understand who they can go to when they have questions and how they can get things answered and what questions might be right for someone who does the lending versus someone who does asset management, and how to have those conversations. So that was all part of the education piece. Here you can see some of the lovely pictures of class week. This happened August 14th through the 18th of this year was class week. We did the open where people actually applied to be part of the group from May to June. They had about a month and a half. We started the planning in February, and then the cohort actually gave their capstone presentations on September 8th. So when they gave their capstone presentations, one of the things that was really interesting is that they could pick to either be in groups or they could be alone. So some of our students chose to be in groups, and here you can see some of the groups. We had multiple people also do just by themselves. They either had land already set aside that they wanted to develop and use their pro formas and their capstone presentations around that. And then also we were working with the city of San Diego around one plot of land for folks to use as a case so they could create a capstone presentation around a piece of land that's already starting to be in that process of being developed, so they could go through what that looks like and ask questions directly to the city. So a couple of things that I wanted to make sure that we talked about before we get too deep into the lessons learned was really who these people are. So let me go back real quick. So our students, they ranged in age and backgrounds. Like I said, we had 90% of the folks that were part of the BIPOC community. 20% were part of the LGBTQIA plus community. And every single one of them was from a community-based organization, either local here in San Diego or a state organization. We had a couple of people from the Turner Center as well, so it was pretty interesting to see the policy side come out sometimes. And all of our steering committee, all of our mentors, and all of our panelists for the jury for the capstone were all very active and willing to participate on a very deep level. I asked them a lot of questions. I asked them to show up a lot of times when others couldn't, and I really dug in to some of those folks to ask to have a little bit more support. So it was really wonderful to have the opportunity to have the support from the community, especially our community here in San Diego. And one of the things I wanted to point out was the education was both on a big picture scale. So what does it look like to actually do development? What does it look like to actually create housing? What does it look like? What's the feasibility around that? What is the big picture of what you're trying to create, and how do you do that? How do you actually go into the community and look at what's already happening there and have those conversations with the folks that are doing the work and making sure that you're paying attention to what the needs of the community are. So that was really important in the capstone presentations, that they brought it back to what the community actually needed and deserved. Another piece was the engagement from the local organizations. Part of the engagement was having the mentors speak one-on-one to each student. Each student had a personal mentor. Some had multiples, depending on where their backgrounds lied. And those mentorships have actually grown into a place where some of those students, our cohort members, were offered jobs or board positions with organizations. Some have been offered opportunities to do the Bridge to Home program, where they can help them support actually creating some housing. So we've been able to really help shepherd that. Again, the knowledge piece really came from our community and from NDC directly, whereas we, as the Federation, were really just making sure that we held together what needed to happen. I gave opportunities to network. One of the opportunities was also a property tour of the Orchard at Hilltop, which is a housing property that opened, I believe, earlier this year. And we were able to do a full tour of the property, as well as meet who did the work. So the developers themselves, the property management team, and some of the residents. So they were able to see all of that, and the architects and all of that as well. So they were able to see what actually could happen and how beautiful really affordable housing can be. So with that, we learned a lot. And so one of the things that we learned was that this group really wants to do as much as possible. They had a lot of ideas, a lot of questions, and frankly, I was not fully aware of all the questions that needed to be answered until I was in it. So some places that we know that we need to dig deeper is deeper engaging with political leadership early in the process. So as soon as possible, when we know we're going to start this, okay, what are we going to do? Where? Who can we work with? What is this? What are the permits like? What is the operations like? Answering a lot of those questions up front, so the students don't have those questions for us in the process. Having a deeper partnership with community-based organizations and be a little bit more community-rooted. A lot of the students wanted to do more within the community. They wanted to learn who the community players might be. They wanted to learn what art or what opportunities are out there that could create some sort of semblance for the residents of that property that they're hoping to create. And so really understanding how to show them what else is out there is really important. It was also suggested to expand the training from 1 week to 2 weeks and have it be more in-depth, where there would be site visits, tours, post-training weeks, and other opportunities to engage with not only elected officials and city and political leadership, but also with folks doing the work and seeing how it's done. Another great opportunity was they were allowed to have one-on-one questions with some asset managers and some property managers to see what that job looks like. The Federation also has a program that we do where it's called our School of Affordable Housing, and it's around teaching folks to be property managers, asset managers, and then also a real estate licensing program. So some of those students actually have been interested in joining that, and some of our students actually came from that program. So it was an interesting little bucket that happened there. But we saw that was really needed. There was a lot of questions around how to support the residents, how to support the tax credits, how to understand what all of that really means. And so lots of questions came from there. The last couple of things, networking opportunities were really important. We did offer multiple. Not everyone could make it each time, and not everyone was able to really be fully in each one. So we would love to have a couple more opportunities, either before the class or after the class, or maybe throughout the year. This is a program that once you do the class for the week, you don't stop the work. There's deep dive trainings that last forever. And NDC really, or Grow America now, they really manage that, though it is our role to help make sure that the items are localized and that the students are still supported through that. So having some sort of program outline around that is really important. And then finally, a larger bucket of funding. We saw that a lot of the students came with ideas around what funding really meant. Some were actually in the financial services, so they knew a little bit about it, but not everybody really did. And there were a lot of questions about feasibility, a lot of questions about pre-development funding, a lot of questions about how do I do X if I only have Y? And so really understanding that the students probably need a little bit more training in that aspect. So part of that expansion of the 2 weeks, and really delving deeper into who are the people doing that work that could assist in that process. So, and then what's next for us? We, as a Federation, are planning to host this. We have not been officially awarded this. It is technically a program that is up for any funder to do. JP Morgan Chase has the first, they can say yes or no, and then after that, we can go from there. No pressure. We did understand that the financial need was a little bit higher this year than what we had originally anticipated, and because of the case work that was needed on our end. A little bit more in measuring our success post-training, so making sure that we keep track of what the students are doing, where they're going, what opportunities they've had since the training, and what their questions have been. They have been very communicative and kept in contact with me on a regular basis. I heard from one today. So they're always wanting more introduction. One of the things that we did at the Federation was offer each one of them a membership to the Federation free of charge for the next year. So once they're in the program, the rest of that year, and then a full calendar year afterward. And that would provide additional technical assistance and support for services and other opportunities to get together. We also offered them opportunities at our conference to attend for free, as well as opportunities to really sit in conversations with folks and giving those opportunities to them as much as possible. One of our students is actually hosting an event tonight for the group, so I'm really excited for how they're working together. Another part of that is really updating the mentorship program and making sure that it's as robust as possible. All of the students who finished this year's cohort have come back and said that they would like to be a mentor for the next time we do it. They all have ideas of how they would like to support, and they all want to be as engaged as possible. They love what we did. They love what they got to do and what they got to see, and each one of them is hungry for more. I will say that again, each one is hungry for more. Another piece would be to assist with job and board placements and positions, making sure that we can assist them in making the correct decisions if they have any questions, and really having more community-rooted conversations within this program. So I think that tells most of the story. I'm sure that each of you have questions, so I will leave you with a group photo of our cohort from our last day.
And could I just add the last word, I think, on all of this is that the mentorship was the strongest component, and the need, the desire for mentorship in an industry that traditionally has had a chain of white male leadership mentoring other young white males. There is, for this to succeed, for real community-based development to take place, it has to come from the community, and these mentorship relationships have to be nurtured over the long term. That was, I think, the major takeaway for us.
Okay, thank you both. We're going to go to public comment, and we're going to start with Tasha Williamson. You will have 2 minutes, and you will be followed by Francine Maxwell.
Can you hear me? I just want to say this is what I'm talking about. This is like really amazing to hear from you about this program and that this exists. I'm often up here because there's something that went wrong. This is amazing. So thank you. I really want to know from this if there are BIPOC developers that emerge, because as Stephen Russell said, Stephen Russell, it's a white-led industry, a white male-dominated industry. And they have been getting very rich, just like the banks, off of BIPOC people. And so I really hope that long-term we'll be able to see that. Thank you for this. The only other thing I had was, what are the age ranges? I don't know if I could talk to her. I just want to know what the age ranges are and how can we help to get it out for the next academy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tasha. We'll get those questions answered. Ms. Maxwell.
Francine Maxwell, I want to say that this was an awesome experience, not only for those people that participated, but for the community. It brought back civility. There were conversations of people that agree to disagree respectfully. You know, we lost that when 45 was in office. People forget that we can disagree respectfully and still break bread and move forward. My guy, John Wee, kicked out everything he almost said, because we as in me, Francine Maxwell, I'm not particularly pleased with an SRO in the heart of the Black Arts and Cultural District. And so there's some give and take conversations that have to take place, but those are the conversations that are very important. I saw Pastor Vaughn's name there, very exciting. When people want to come together to learn and you provide an opportunity, then we can only go up together. And so I look forward to the next dates. What I will say is I'm hoping that there's a caveat that has media, and that you're held accountable for how you push this out to media, because my print media was left out, my La Pressas, my Voice and Viewpoints, my Filipino Press. Certain people do not get their information on Instagram or Facebook, because we are Wi-Fi challenged. It's the old school, read the newspaper, especially as they're getting their food baskets or their food boxes, because the lines are getting longer. And we have been blessed to make sure that there's a newspaper in every bag or box throughout the community at a lot of our food distributions. So please remember and carve out just the extra piece. Oh, I forgot, GOD1 Radio.
I think I saw Steve taking notes. So, okay, that concludes our public comment. We'll go to RTF members for any comments or questions for Sarah or Steve. Okay. Well, I think that's a good thing, and I think if you have Ms. Williamson and Ms. Maxwell on board, I think you're pretty good. You're doing pretty good. They're laughing at it because they know. We know. Oh, yes. So, yes, please address the questions from public comment.
Thank you so much. So to answer the questions from our lovely audience here, who have become developers. Actually, there was already one person from the program, Wanda Rogers, you can see in the jean jacket right here, who has already had some experience doing some development, so she's automatically already part of that. She is one of the folks that has started the process and actually developed multiple things at this point, or started the process of developing multiple things. Dr. Michael Crawford, who you can see in the picture on the far left behind me, he's also someone who has been very active in the development world. He's not only understands the feasibility side and understands what's needed, but really has dug in and asked a lot of the hard questions and offered some insight to some of our students. Pastor Harvey Vaughn, who you mentioned, has multiple projects that he's been working on with the organization, with the church. I forget which one, excuse me. Thank you. And he has already started the process of a lot of this. So what is really needed around that is some support and some additional access to who the decision makers are. So we're helping with that aspect of it. The age ranges for the program, it's really set around emerging developers. So there is no age limit. You could be any age as long as you are willing and able to support the actual class week. It was in person for 5 days, and we did make that mandatory. And the capstone as well was mandatory. So you had to make those dates. We had one student who had a childcare issue that we helped them work out. We had another student who had transportation issue, which we also helped work out. So that's another thing that when you're planning for this, we want to make sure that we can remove those barriers of entry. As far as the media, there was not enough done, to your point, and there could be a lot more done. There is because this was the first cohort, NDC actually provided support around having everything filmed. Literally every part of this was filmed. So we have a video team that's a local San Diego team who is selected, who actually is working on putting that together as a beautiful movie reel. So it'll be more of a probably 20-30 minute documentary piece, but that will be for us to use going forward.
Thank you for answering those questions. And just the last thing just off of that, a lot of times in the cohorts and academies, we kind of don't see once folks graduate or go to the next level, that sort of environment of support. And so would love to help build that out too when people leave this week or 2 weeks or however long it is, that we have kind of a structured way to make sure that they have the support for, the type of development that they want to do in our communities. So would love to see a second cohort, no pressure. I'm sitting at the table with a lot of folks who can make that happen. So would love to see that, but thank you for your work, Sarah and Steve, on this. So with that, if there are no more questions, comments, we will now go to item number 8, and we'll just go straight to Sujata and Daisy. We do have about 20 minutes left. So we'll try to move as fast as we can. Thank you.
Daisy. Hello, everyone. Greetings, members and audience. I'm Daisy Crumpton with the Housing Commission and the Reinvestment Task Force, providing an update on the Worth Grant Homeownership Equity Collaborative. I'm going to deeply condense the update, and just since we've talked about this before at this body, and go straight to what's happened since the last time we met at the end of June. As a reminder for anyone listening for the first time, the goal of the collaborative and the grant from Wells Fargo is to narrow the racial wealth gap by increasing home ownership for BIPOC people. The program runs through December 31st, 2025. That pause was, of course, we don't want it to end. That's this phase, and we'll find ways to build sustainability. And that is a big piece of what the 4 main strategies were in the grant. It was building new infrastructure because clearly the current system isn't working, right? So we are setting up new services, new products, the 4 Ps we call them: homebuyer preparation, new ways to help more people of color qualify for mortgages, because we know that one of the biggest barriers besides access to down payments and savings is high debt to DTI. Trying to speak too fast, my brain is already 3 sentences ahead of where we are. DTI, overburdened credit, and the like. So also providing access to mentors, coaches. If you are a first-generation homebuyer, you don't have someone in your family that you can turn to. So how can we create infrastructure around that? So as I've mentioned previously, we prioritized the strategies that have the longest runway in terms of either helping folks to get ready, or we're setting up this new infrastructure that has primarily been the products and the homebuyer preparation. As part of products, there was a product launch this summer in Sujata's shop that she will talk about. We have been focused really intensively on launching the Counselor Referral Network. Sujata will talk about that too, because she's been pulled, well, you volunteered, wait a minute, right into the middle of it. But what we are doing is creating a central point of contact where interested homebuyers can call, and then they are getting referred out to organizations that can provide culturally relevant, specific, consumer or customer-friendly counseling and coaching. To that end, we've been working to develop what does that look like, what are those services, doing data collection around that, and then all of the money that the Housing Commission is re-granting through this comes with a contract. So figuring out what are the deliverables, what is the scope of work. The first ones that we prioritized were organizations that already deliver this service, and Money Management International is international is a national organization that provides counseling, and they were set to go from day one. Some of our other partners are doing capacity building, so those are the next contracts that we'll be sequencing. If I could turn to my colleague, Sujata Raman, she will talk in more detail about both of those things.
Sorry. Thanks, Daisy. I wish I was in my chair in my house and over Zoom. This is so loud, but that's okay. No, thank you. And as I said, I won't take long, but I am Sujata Raman, and I'm the Vice President of Single Family Finance at the Housing Commission, overseeing all our homeownership programs. And proud to say we have so many now. We have about 7, and we have an ADU finance program, and a lot of good things happening. But with regards to the Worth Equity Collaborative Project and so on, we launched a BIPOC-specific product, and very happy that this was a middle-income product, so we were able to help people that we couldn't help previously because of lack of funding. So we launched that in June, and it has been very successful. We've closed we've helped 7 households so far. We were able to help a firefighter, a dental hygienist, a grounds maintenance technician. Some of these people would not have been able to buy a home if not for the assistance provided by the Housing Commission through the help of Wells Fargo's $7.5 million grant. We also have about 8 or 9 loans in escrow in process, so we'll be funding those in the next coming months. So the response has been overwhelmingly positive. We have about 350 loan officers across 50 lenders signed up to assist their clients with this program. And that's a huge grassroots, community-based network that we have here. And we had a lender training in September, and 85 new loan officers signed up to become a participating lender with the Housing Commission. And so besides this the product or the program that we have that we launched for people of color was a $40,000 loan and grant combination product. But besides that, as I said, we have several other down payment assistance and closing cost assistance programs. One of our very popular and successful programs is in the city of San Diego, where we offer up to 22% of the purchase price as a silent second with no payments. That too it was very slow the last year and a half. As we all know, the real estate market has been very challenging in San Diego. But off late, since this fiscal year, I think people have reconciled to the 7.5%, 8% interest rates that you bankers charge on your first mortgage. People have, and the home prices are astronomically high. We know that, but people are still buying. They're, cashing in 401ks, getting gift funds, and we've closed 12 loans so far this fiscal year in the city of San Diego, another 7 in the county of San Diego. So very happy about that. We also, as Daisy said, now have a dedicated person, a home ownership advisor, to help anyone who's interested in buying a home. We have a dedicated phone number, a dedicated email, and to give you some data, just this month, in 7 business days, he has taken or helped 57 buyers, potential buyers, who just want to call and seek assistance. Like, how do I become a home buyer? What are the steps I take? And we found that 23 of them, which is a huge percentage, actually 16 of them, which is about 24%, were almost mortgage ready. They had good credit, they had saved enough for down payment, they just didn't know what to do next, or they thought they could never buy a home. So he was able to assist them and guide them and send them to the appropriate referral source. As Daisy said, we also have partnerships now with our credit counseling agencies like MMI, who are going to provide them with services such as debt counseling, credit counseling, and so on. And I think those are the updates I have. Daisy?
Terrific. Thank you so much, Sujata. Did you mention that the BIPOC loan is also middle income?
Yes.
Okay, so it's rounding out the portfolio. She mentioned the previous product was 80% and below. Amber, could you show us the flyer? And that has the phone number and the email address for reaching the homeownership advisor that Sujata talked about.
Sorry. I also want to say we're doing a lot of outreach. As Chair Montgomery Stepp knows, we were there last Saturday at the NAREB home ownership seminar. We had a good turnout, 40, 50 people showed up there. This morning, some of us were at the FDIC home ownership seminar, which was conducted exclusively in Spanish. So home ownership is very critical. We are all aware of that, and in this room especially, and we're doing a lot of outreach, a lot of promotions, a lot of assistance is now available to prospective buyers.
Excellent. We're building momentum too. This is the flyer. The phone number is 619-578-7788. And the email address is homeownership@sdhc.org. This is a bilingual flyer, Spanish, English, and we are looking to translate it to the other priority languages, but this has just gotten ready this week, and we are beginning to ramp up our outreach. And so partners are invited to contact me. My email address is daisyc, DAISYC, @sdhc.org, and I will be contacting many of the people in the room on both sides of me, in front and in back. But we are looking to make all of the resources as we launch them, help folks to know about these resources, to access them, and also to broaden our usual lens. The Housing Commission is focused on low income, moderate income, very low income. The great thing about this program is that it is open to BIPOC people of all incomes. And so we are looking for novel and innovative partnerships around outreach, especially so we can get the word out. That concludes our presentation. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. We will post the flyer on the RTF website under this meeting. So it's sandiegortf.org/meetings. Yes, we'll post that right away today if it's not already there, and also push it out to our mailing list.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to public comment. We will start with Mr. Derek Luckett. You will have 2 minutes, and then Tasha Williamson, followed by Ms. Maxwell.
Good morning or afternoon. I'm sorry, I may be stuck in this morning. I have enough coffee. My name is Derek Luckett. I'm the chairman, or should I say, the immediate past chairman for NARAB, for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. I happen to own a business here in San Diego County, which is Destiny 6 Financial Real Estate and Mortgage. NARAB, you came to our event. It was a very good event. How you doing, Daisy? What I will say to you is that first and foremost, I think your committee is missing someone like me. I am a licensed real estate broker, licensed mortgage broker, insurance background, so I have enough knowledge. I've tried to get on this task force for many years, and it just seems to be an uphill battle. So I'm going to ask again, and I definitely think that we need to be represented. The other thing that I want to talk with you all about is the metrics that's being utilized to put in the community. Well, two things. What type of marketing is actually going in the community? That's going on a mailing list, but how are we actually getting this out? Have you partnered with the realtors or the realtist in order to get that taken care of, to make sure that they know that these things are available? The other thing that you stated was that there's a real estate agent that is involved in that. You have to be careful and give at least 3 to 4 names of real estate professionals, because if you're leading them all to one, it's considered a steering. So we want to get away from that, of course. And then the other aspect of that is, what type of metrics do we have in place, or money that is earmarked, to make sure that it's rightfully going to the right people? How do we know how many blacks are getting it, how many Asians are getting it, how many Hispanics are getting it, so that we as a community can make sure that these things are taken care of and is being done in a fair way. My last statement was for the other people that were up here earlier. I want to thank them for bringing that forward. I also own a daycare center, so I understood the language and what they were speaking of, and I'm glad that you guys are talking about giving my wife a raise, because she needs a raise. But with everything else said and done, I think that it's very imperative that we get it right. The funds that you're getting, we need to make sure that it's done properly, and make sure that we have a voice at the table as a people, and as the community have that voice at the table, because I am not a banker.
Mr. Luckett, just a concluding statement.
I'm not a banker, I'm not a politician. The only thing that I want to say to you is that I am involved in the community, though, and I want to make sure that I can help out as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Tasha Williamson.
Thank you again for allowing us to speak and being here. Number one, I want to bring back what I talked about last month, because it is being widely stated when I go into meetings that are talking about housing and homeownership, that Black people the majority of Black people are tied to the military. I want people to stop saying that, because there is almost 80-some thousand Black people in San Diego County, and they are not all tied to the military. And so they are not all going to VHA. Please do marketing better. It is imperative. When I came last month, you were talking about helping people from different groups, but you are disproportionately impacting people from the Black community. And you've been doing it for generations. And I'm asking this task force to stop it, to end it, because Black people also deserve to have homes. So whatever you need to do to make sure that I am no longer seeing the disproportionate impact of lack of Black people knowing about the programs, getting into the programs, getting funded by the programs, it needs to end. $7.5 million. Harm from every bank sitting on this task force has happened to people who look like me. It has happened to people who look like me. And very rarely do I hear apologies. I've heard it from you all last month, but I just want you to end the disproportionate impacts. I want you to make sure that the money goes where you say it's going to go. The first thing in BIPOC is Black. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Ms. Francine Maxwell.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to ask if the board members can consider reimagining how someone gives you a report. So if they're constantly telling you that we're doing BIPOC and we're doing this, ask them to break it down. Since B is the first in BIPOC, in the 8 people that are in escrow, they said we got 8 escrows going on right now and it's BIPOC. Tell me how many of them is black. Tell me how many of them is my indigenous brothers and sisters. Ask to get a breakdown of every time somebody wants to give you a report and they say BIPOC. Just want to make sure that you are aware that we have the Crawford cluster. We have Walter Lamb, that's Alliance. You can get some Pharisee translation. So all you need to do is reach out and ask somebody and we can help you. Our Crawford cluster, we have translators up and down because that's a big culture. And so we want to make sure that everybody is comfortable. And since homeownership is the American dream and people are, you see what they're doing at our border. So let's make sure that we do more than just the top ones, which is Tagalog, but remember, not everybody speaks Tagalog either. So there's some other languages. So just ask the community, who could you get that we can hire to consult with us so that we can get our marketing right? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you to the members of the public for coming in and speaking to us. Let us quickly, if you can, go to RTF members for any questions or comments. Anything? Okay. All right. Well, I do think it's a good point to kind of break down and kind of just separate and disaggregate the data. Also, I will just throw in here because I've been having to invite people to use an additional lens from the work on the reparations task force, timing myself, the work on the reparations task force be based on, the Supreme Court decision to do away with, affirmative action programs. And we at the task force decided that as we move forward with reparations in the state of California, that we would have an eligibility standard of descendants of enslaved people. And, it takes a kind of a lot to get there to prove that through genealogy and everything. But I think it should be added because when we break out the data, we do even see differences. So, Black folks are not a monolith. There are a lot of people just like no other group is, right? And so I think we have an opportunity to split the data and be able to dig deeper and look at it even more than we already are. So as we move forward, I think it's good to keep that in mind. But I'm excited about the programs, as you all know. I talk about them all the time, and I'm really excited about what we've been able to do in a focus on homeownership along with affordable housing. So we're creating our balanced communities. So with that, we appreciate you. Thank you. We are going to have to trail item 9. I do have a hard stop, and so our co-chair is not here today, so we will have to trail that. But if you have any last-minute things, Daisy, that you want to say in 3 minutes or less, I want to give you that opportunity. But I know it's you work very hard on this. I really don't want to, be in a time crunch when we're discussing it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We can continue it to next year. It's a little ways out. I can also post the data on the RTF website, and I'll take you to the last page of the figurative report. Things were effectively the same, which is actually really good news given the heightened interest rates, right? And we did also see some great numbers around tax credit projects, affordable housing. The overall number was about $2 billion, and that goes down because people aren't refinancing their houses because of the 7% interest rates that everyone talked about. This year is also wonky because U.S. Bank has not absorbed Union Bank in terms of its numbers. So the comparisons are apples to apples between the last 2 years, but not to all of our previous work, which is why we don't have all of the charts
that we used to do, besides the fact that we're also focused on the Worth program. But I will post this online and can field questions, individual, email, or we can also just take a few minutes in the new year to go through this in greater depth.
Okay, and thank you. Since you did put it up, we did have a public speaker on the item. So, Mr. Luckett, I can give you, you're okay. Okay, all right.
The only thing that I'll say is that I'm hoping that the reports that you're getting, I know that there's surveys to the banks.
Yeah.
But what is the actual report card of the bank from the FDIC?
Sure.
So I think the way we're looking at it here holistically, it's great, but we really need to break down who's actually lending to these different population of people, the demographics. So it will break it down for married, single, the whole
Right.
9 yards.
The
So
whole
I
nine.
think that's a better, true report versus what's being supplied. Not to say that anybody's giving us bad stuff, but it's an easier way to look at it to know who's really getting the funding.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Again, it's good to see everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your year. And this meeting is adjourned.